Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway Coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Get 2 times the points when you buy any size hot or iced coffee drink with Speedy Rewards.
Shop on eBay this holiday season to get more for your dough on stand mixers. Or get more for your buck on this season's hottest tech and gaming gear. And on eBay, you can even get more.
Oh, wow.
I know, so festive.
Pizzazz for your party. Make your holiday party one to remember. Get more because you save more on premium brands with eBay's exclusive deals. Get more when you get it on eBay.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
What up, Hoop Ballers? Welcome to another edition of Hoop Balls DFS Today. This is your Friday, November 5th edition. I am your host, Santino Cacone, and I am joined again by the one, the only, David Menkoff. How you doing today, Dave?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited to dive into some exciting NBA action with you, Santino. How's your day going?
Going pretty good. And yeah, I'm excited too. We have the two pods that we have done together so far have been big slates. We did that, I think 11 the other day or 10. This one's going to be 9, so I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. Cannot be any more excited.
To kick off the weekend. I like it. All right. And we're recording this one not too late on Thursday night, but about 9:30-ish Eastern Standard Time. Without further ado, we can jump into that. And before I do, actually, I want to give a shout out to our guys over at manscaped.com, the number one men's below-the-waist grooming out there, ever, anywhere. They have fantastic products if you haven't tried them yet. The Perfect Package 4.0 featuring the Lawnmower 3.0 and all of the great stuff that comes with it, like the Crop Preserver, the Crop Reviver, the Crop... I forgot the other one, but there's the T-shirt, the boxers, all of this great stuff. I love this thing. The newspaper came in it. It's honestly fantastic. But check that out, and you can get 20% off and free shipping if you go to the manscaped.com right now and enter the promo code HoopBall20. Again, that's 20% off and free shipping if you go to manscaped.com and enter the promo code HoopBall20. And what better way to kick off the holiday season with some Perfect Package 3.0. All right, guys and girls and everybody in between, let's get on over to this first game of the slate. On Friday, we have the Brooklyn Nets traveling to the Detroit Pistons to take the spread. I think we have this one. Yep, it's a 212 game total. We only have 4 game totals, currently 5 total spreads. This is tied for the lowest of the 4. And on the spread, we have the Nets as 9.5-point road favorites. The Pistons are on the back end of a back-to-back for this one. I'll throw it over to you, Dave. How you feeling about the Nets in this one, the away team?
Yeah, I think it's something to monitor, especially when you mentioned the Pistons are a second night of a back-to-back. So I like the Nets, despite this low game total and the fact that the Nets are heavy favorites in this one. There's a couple names that are pretty much blowout proof when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets, and that's, of course, Kevin Durant, 10,600 for Mr. Durant. He's been very consistent to start the season. Almost every game he's been putting up 45 to 50 fantasy points. His price tag is a little high at 10,600, honestly. So that's something that I would probably look for more tournaments more than anything, just given the likely blowout nature of this game, especially with the fact that the Pistons are going to be probably tired after taking on the Sixers the night before. So I'll probably look at Durant a little bit, but the guys I'm really looking at in a blowout scenario are guys off the bench. So it starts with Patty Mills, $4,000 in salary. We've all seen what he can do when he's shooting lights out from the field. I mean, he's been shooting tremendously from 3-point range to start the season. So I don't see any reason why we can't go after Patty Mills here at 4,000. There's a ton of value we were just talking about on this entire slate, but Patty Mills is definitely going to be in play for me, given the blowout nature. And then also Bruce Brown. If we're talking blowouts, he's a guy that hasn't really been asked to do too much in recent games, but we have seen in the past, if he gets 25, 30 minutes, he can put up some numbers at 4,500. Not a terrible option, but right now I'm leaning more Patty Mills is my favorite, followed by a little bit of Kevin Durant in tournaments, and then follow up finally with a little Bruce Brown to round it all out. And that's really it for me. There's not a lot of too much love on the Nets otherwise in this type of scenario. Who do you like on the Nets side, if anyone?
Yeah, and I'm with you. And I forgot to say the injury report. We know Kyrie Irving and Nick Claxton for the Nets are out. The Pistons obviously don't have an injury report as of yet because they're playing, but they only have Chris Smith and Isaiah Livers out on Thursday, which is no fantasy significance in that one. But I'm pretty much with you. I'm not going to really go after the Nets in this one. Really good matchup, but could be a blowout. Then while they're away, then Pistons are on the second end of a back-to-back. They might be resting people. We don't know. Someone could get hurt. And also, second end of a back-to-back against one of the best teams in the league could be a lopsided score. So I would prefer Durant right above Harden slightly, even though Durant probably has a tougher matchup with Grant on the other side of the ball. But I won't feel super comfortable with all these options that we have on the slate there. So I don't think you have to force it, but it's not a crazy price tag there. I like your calls of Patty Mills, Bruce Brown. I would throw Blake Griffin in there too. We saw him play 31 minutes in the last one after Steve Nash said, I'm not going to change the lineup. Blake Griffin's the starter. He did good last year. Came out, he played 31 minutes in the last one, which is pretty nice to see. And he's getting another shot at Detroit, where he played a few years, and they just told him to go home until they bought him out because they couldn't find a trade partner. Always a revenge narrative is solid, so 4-2 price tag with the two guys you mentioned, Brown and Mills, all in that 4K range. Those are the guys that I'd take a stab on, but I really don't think we need to rush into it. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of value to be had here. So if you wanted to play it safe, you can wait for the later rounds. Right. Let's jump on over to the Pistons side of the ball. Mentioned Grant. He's playing pretty well again. He's starting to jump up. His price tag's starting to jump up again as well. I don't think he's blowout proof. So, I think he's pretty much blowout proof if he's playing. That's what I meant to say. Sorry, I said that one backwards. But we got to see who's going to actually play on this one. While it's already early in the year, last year they sat people, they didn't sit people. They're not a super competitive team. They have a lot of young guys, so I'm interested to see what they're going to do tomorrow when we see this injury report. But I'm assuming like an Isaiah Stewart does play. I think that's a good matchup for him. Cade Cunningham's only 4.6. Price tag went up a little bit, but even though this guy's not making any shots right now, he's taking a good amount of shots, and eventually they're going to fall. He took 14 in that last one. He already had 8 at halftime tonight. So while he's making 2 of 14 and 1 of 8, they're going to start falling, and I like to see that volume and the minutes. Played 29 minutes in that second one. Been playing a lot tonight. 4,600. That's a price tag that I will take. In a high-scoring game that could be against backups if Nets just roll over them in the beginning. And those are the two guys I'm looking at. Maybe some Trey Lyles for very cheap value at 3,600 if someone's out. But I think those three are the top guys that I'm looking at over here. How about you, man?
Yeah, it's hard to knock Cade Cunningham. If there's one thing we have to say about the young rook, he is not shy. That's for sure. I was watching a highlight where he put up a three, made it at the buzzer pretty much from the logo today, pretty confidently. So Cade Cunningham is definitely in play at 4,600 because he's going to put up 16 shots. Even if he only makes 3, he can provide rebounds. He can provide assists a little bit. I think the defensive stats are going to come up, and 4,600 is not bad. I also really like Killian Hayes. I know I mentioned Killian Hayes on previous pods, and everyone always kills me for it, but I actually like Killian Hayes. I think he's still trying to understand his offensive game and get more consistent and more comfortable. And it's definitely a work in progress, but we have seen some defensive upside with him. If he can just round out some type of shot at 4,000, that's a pretty good value, but I'll probably keep him more for tournaments when it comes down to the Pistons, especially in a back-to-back set. I love your Isaiah Stewart call. I'll probably have quite a few shares of him at center, especially for center value. There's not a whole lot of center value on the slate. So I love Isaiah Stewart now that he's under 5K. That price tag is definitely priced to move. First time he's under 5K the entire season. So time to attack for sure. And then I like the Jaren Grant call. I'll probably have a little bit of shares of Jaren Grant when it's all said and done. But I'm definitely looking at Kate Cunningham and then Isaiah Stewart mostly for cash games.
I like it. All right, man. Let's jump on over to this next game. We have another game at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Memphis Grizzlies traveling to DC to take on the Wizards. We don't have any spread or any game total for this one, but we do have an injury report. And, oh, wait, no, we don't have an injury. Nope, I'm looking at the wrong day. I have all these pulled up, looking at the wrong day. So on the Grizzlies, we have Dylan Brooks is ruled out for this one. Davis Bertans, Thomas Bryant, Anthony Gill, Cassius Winston, and Rui Hashimura are all out for the Wizards. I'll throw it over to you. How are you looking at this Grizzlies team? We're seeing them. They started to gel a little bit last game, and we see a lot of good fantasy production here. But how are you looking at Ja now that he's 9-4 and everybody else?
Yeah, it's definitely tough to really look at Ja the same way as we have throughout the season. He was definitely started off very hot, putting up 50, 60 fantasy points pretty consistently. I don't trust him as much in this matchup, despite a plus matchup against the Wizards. 9,400 is a little bit too high, especially now that they're playing a little bit more team-oriented basketball, it seems like. And he's not getting the same amount of rebounds and assists that he was getting earlier in the season. Do I expect it to bite me? Potentially, yes. But I'm not going to be targeting a whole lot of Ja Morant at 9,400 in this game. I think there's some other high-priced guards that I'm potentially looking at instead. So I'll probably save some dollars there. The guys I'm looking at really, in terms of a value perspective, are guys like Kyle Anderson at 4,300. That's a great price tag. He's been getting pretty consistent minutes off the bench for the Grizzlies at only 4,300. I mean, if he gets 25 fantasy points, that's already hitting some value. So I like Kyle Anderson. It's probably my favorite play on the Grizzlies. I'm not going to be looking at a whole lot of other guys. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a guy that is always intriguing. At 5,600, which I just realized was his price tag because I had him down for 6,900, which is completely inaccurate. At 5,600, Jaren Jackson Jr. suddenly becomes my favorite play on the Grizzlies side. A guy that we've seen from a fantasy perspective, when he puts it all together, he has 45 point upside. At 5,600, that's a fantastic value. Coming off a game against the Nuggets where he finally shot the ball well. He's getting more comfortable. I like Jaren Jackson a lot. My favorite play probably on the Grizzlies, followed by Kyle Anderson as my number 2. And that's really it on the Memphis side of the ball. What about you? Any interest in Jaren Jackson?
Yeah, and I'm a big Jaren Jackson guy, and I love that price tag, 5.6. He finally, like you said, he shot the ball well. Been waiting for that for a little bit. He shot the ball well, good in the second game. Hasn't shot the ball well since, but 7 of 14, 4 of 7 the game before that, even though he had 5 fouls and really only played 18 minutes. But shots starting to come around, and that's the big thing for him. If that shot's coming around, this guy can block shots, get steals, hit threes. He is actually over 7 feet now. I remember when he was injured, he grew a couple inches when he was hurt. But this guy can really play, and at 5'6", that's a very good price tag against this Washington team. He'll be seeing a lot of Kyle Kuzma and Denny Advia, so there's really a good opportunity for him to beat that price tag here. I think Kyle Anderson is another solid play. He's been seeing a lot of minutes, like you mentioned, for all the all the reasons. Mid-20s, that's a fair price tag for him. Melton, Bain, Adams, I think they're all somewhat in play for me. I don't think you need to go there, but if you're around that range, those aren't people that I hate. I prefer Adams as the cheapest one, and if I'm going to take Melton, I'd rather just take the upside and Jaren Jackson Jr., but I think I don't mind looking at either of those guys, Adams specifically, and that's pretty much it here. They do run a deep rotation. We saw Tyus Jones have a really good game the other game and get a lot of minutes there, 27, and they played 20. So I guess if you have a bargain bin, you can take him knowing that he's going to get some minutes because he's always in the rotation. But I think I'm with you. It's Jaren Jackson Jr., Kyle Anderson, solid, Steven Adams. I like going there, and Tyus Jones if you want to float him out there. On the other side of the ball, we have the Wizards. Kyle Kuzma got hurt in the last game, but he's ready to go in this one. He's not even on the injury report. I don't know if that's a mistake, but as of now, they're saying he's fully healthy, and we don't have any Davis Bertans to take any couple minutes over there, so something to think about. But I still don't really want to go to him at 6'9". Dinwiddie, no, at 7. Beal, intriguing at 9'5", but probably I'd rather just see if I can get to the Durant level or someone else that we'll get to later on. There's a couple other options. I think Harrell's my favorite guy on this team right now. I mean, he's just playing angry, grabbing a lot of rebounds, scoring a lot, doing what he does best, scoring in the paint, grabbing a lot of rebounds, playing 31 minutes a game. I know a lot of that was without Gafford, but he still got 27 in the last one, the 33 in the game before that. He's only taken 11 shots in those last two with Gafford back, but his rebounding, his assist numbers, a lot of it is showing. I don't think 65 is a bad price tag. I think Adams is solid, a little more solid for the savings that you'll get, but I don't mind taking a stab at Harrell here in the matchup. And I think Caldwell Pope at 3,600 is just a guy who finds himself playing 30-plus minutes a lot. And if that's what you need, just a lot of minutes equal money in the 3,600 range, take a stab at him. And that's pretty much it. How about you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one with the Wizards. I mean, and you would think on paper, you're looking at guys like Bradley Beal, 9,500, a guy that we've seen in seasons past throughout his career, can put up just monster type of lines. We haven't really seen that as much this season, and that's something to monitor. His best game, he did have 59 fantasy points against the Celtics a little less than a week ago. However, I just don't see that type of ceiling type of game here either against the Grizzlies, so I'm probably going to fade Beal in most lineups. Not a lot of interest there. Looking at guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, again, 7,000, a fair price tag, and not a lot of value there to be had just given where he is so far this season. I know you mentioned a guy like Latavius Caldwell-Pope. I like him quite a bit, definitely more for tournaments. And then if I'm really going dumpster diving as well, I actually do like Denny Avila a little bit. A guy that is starting to get comfortable again. In his last game, he played 26 minutes at 21 fantasy points. 3,300 is a great price tag. So especially if this game ends up being some type of blowout potentially, Danny's going to get extra minutes. He's going to get extra run. So it might be worth a flyer. Another one of my top value plays probably when it comes to tournaments, but definitely not trustable for cash. And then definitely the final guy I'm looking at too is Montrezl Harrell. However, at 6,500, it's a little bit too pricey for him despite his fantastic play this season. I'm probably going to reserve him more for tournaments more than anything.
All right, I like it. Let's jump on over to the last game that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the San Antonio Spurs traveling to Florida to take on the Orlando Magic. We do have a spread and total for this. It is 212. It's tied for the lowest with the Nets Pistons that we have. And then the Spurs are 5-point road favorites. On the injury report, we have Zach Collins, Jakob Poeltl. They have Josh Primo and Joe Wieskamp all sent back to the G League, but the first two are out. And on the Magic, we have Michael Carter-Williams, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Etuan Moore all out, and Gary Harris as questionable. I'll jump first. I'll take the Spurs on this one. I like the front court without Poeltl there. I think we have some solid value. Like Thad Young, he didn't play a ton of minutes in the last one, only got 22, but that was still his most that he's played all year. It was a 1-point loss. He shot 4 of 8, but he still had that well-rounded fantasy game that we saw him bring out in him last year when he was on Chicago. He had 8.6 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 27 fantasy points in 22 minutes. That is really solid. We know he's going to get extra minutes because Poeltl's not there. And Drew Eubanks started in the last one. He played only 19, but he brought back 23 in over 23 fantasy points with 10 points, 5 boards, and 3 blocks. He can do that again. And if those two guys are seeing mid-20s or even a little bump, I think they can both easily beat value. Those are my 2 favorite plays on the team. I don't mind looking at Doug McDermott if his minutes are going to come back up at 3,800. and Derek White at 61. Probably not going to go Murray, even though he's playing awesome. The 9,100 is just a big price tag for me, even against this Orlando Magic team. Though the Magic are one of the slowest teams in the league, as you can expect. But I'm probably going to stay with the big front court in there, and that's where I like it. How about you?
Yeah, when it comes to the Spurs, the front court is definitely intriguing. Drew Eubanks, 4,300. I like him quite a bit. He's going to get the minutes, especially with Pato out. With Porto, I can't pronounce it. Apologies. I have tried many times, but Drew Eubanks definitely in play. I love his Wikipedia page that it's his prom photo. That alone is probably worth a lineup or two, just because it's hilarious that he still has that as his Wikipedia page. Other than that, it's a little tidbit. Other than that, I also am looking at Thaddeus Young is a solid call, and 5,300 definitely in play, more of a tournament option. Despite getting some minutes, he's got better presence, can provide those steals, blocks, but I'm not going to be tackling him too much here. The guy I'm looking at is actually the young second-year player, Devin Vassell, in the backcourt. I like him quite a bit. He's been getting consistent minutes in recent games, coming off 2 straight games of over 28 fantasy points, and his price tag went down. So thank you, DraftKings pricing people, because you just gave us a pretty solid value option here. It's a great matchup for him. He should get 25, 30 minutes again, despite the return of Doug McDermott. I still think Devin Vassell is a great play at 3,900. He's probably one of my top 3 value plays in the entire slate. So I'm going to be targeting him very heavily, followed by sprinkling a little bit of Drew Eubanks, and finally rounding out the Spurs with a little bit of Derek White to finish it off. But again, more for tournaments. The only guy that I would trust for cash is actually Devin Vassell.
All right, I like it. Let's jump on to our first game at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. We have the New York Knicks traveling to Milwaukee to take on the Bucks. We don't have a game total for this one, but we do have some solid injury reports. The Knicks have not yet submitted it, but the Bucks have DiVincenzo, Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton all out, and Drew Holiday is probable for this one. Hasn't played in a little bit, so we have a Drew Holiday sighting in this. I'll throw it over to you. Who you liking on this Bucks team, or this Knicks team, who are the away team? And who you liking over here?
Yeah, before I jump into the Knicks, I think I'm going to jump into the Orlando Magic.
Oh my gosh, I am already jumping the gun there. Yeah, you can jump. I jumped the gun on that one. All right, we will do a quick rewind. We forgot to take on the Magic here. Who you liking the Magic against the Spurs? We're playing no one against. I think I'm going to take everybody on the Spurs because I don't think they're playing anybody tonight.
Absolutely. I don't think you like anyone in the Magic. I think that's what the listeners are gonna find out really quick.
I look right at the Knicks.
There's not a whole lot I like actually on the Magic side. Speaking of the Magic, I'm looking at Wendell Carter Jr. at 6,400. Price tag went up a little bit, coming off a 39-point effort. He's getting the minutes. He's getting double-double, something that we expected to see last year, and now we're finally seeing it. He's starting to round out some of that potential that we saw in the Bulls when the Bulls drafted him. So I like Carter 6,400. I think he's a solid mid-round value. With guys like Okeke back in the lineup, it's hard to trust a lot of the guys that we were trusting earlier, like Franz Wagner, for example. So Mo Bamba's also going to be in play, but I kind of like Wendell Carter for the fact that he's much cheaper, $700 cheaper. So I'm going to go with Wendell Carter probably, and that's pretty much it. Cole Anthony's price tag is just way too high at this point, so I'm not going to be looking that direction. Jalen Suggs as well, 5,100 is just not going to be in my player pool. Do you like anyone in the Magic? It sounds like you don't.
Yeah, forgot the Magic there. I don't mind Okeke at 3,800. He's probably my favorite of the group. The Magic play really slow, though the Spurs are top 10 in pace and not playing great defense as well. But the price tags, like Bamba, when he was in the high 5s, low 6s, I really liked him. Now 7-1, a little more cause for concern because that's a lot of money, extra money that we can use elsewhere. Cole Anthony's now, he's playing fantastic, but he's almost 8K now. It's very hard for him to bring back value. If you look at his season, he got those really highs and then those really lows, so he's not as safe. You can take him in tournaments, but I really don't like the matchup for him. You mentioned Carter. I like Carter too, and you also mentioned how Okiki's back, and he's going to take some minutes out of everybody because that whole rotation was playing big, playing small, playing all different lineups. They'll figure out how to play everybody, but everybody's price tag slightly higher, elevated from where I like them. So I think Okiki, if he's going to play 25 plus minutes, is my favorite here. I don't mind taking a stab at like a Bamba, but I really don't love it as well. I'm probably going to leave them mostly alone. And then jump on over to this New York Knicks Milwaukee Bucks team, and who you like it on the Knicks.
Yeah, it's good to go back to the Knicks. It is a national televised game here, so there's going to be some interest on my side on the Knicks. Kemba Walker, 5,900, is a guy that I'm looking at. He's starting to round out a little bit, getting more comfortable in a Knicks uniform. Despite his poor performance in the last game, he was coming off a string of pretty solid all-around fantasy games. So I like him. That price tag is a little bit too high for cash lineups for me, so I'm probably going to reserve him more for tournaments. And the only guy I'm looking at the Knicks, it's tough from a DFS perspective, is going to be Julius Randle. 9,600. He's almost always in play, especially against the Bucks. Even if you get to defensive Giannis, I can trust him for tournaments at the least. I don't know if I'll have too many lineups for any of these Knicks guys, to be honest, from a cash perspective. And that's pretty much how I'm looking at it, straight down the line for me. Any interest in Julius Randle here?
Some slight interest. I think there's interest here. The Bucks are still banged up. Their defense hasn't been as great because they haven't had Lopez for pretty much all year, or Drew Holiday pretty much all year. DiVincenzo all year. So it's a big blow. It's not the greatest defense that we've seen. I know they're one of the better defenses in the league when fully healthy. And they also play at a super fast pace. They're third in the league right now for pace, over a one full percentage over the Jazz, who are fourth. So it gives everybody a slight bump. That said, I don't know how much exposure I'll have to Randle. I probably won't have much. I would rather have some Barrett, but I just don't like how it's bumped up to 6'8". I really wish it was still at the 6s. I'll take some shots at him in GPP, same with Kemba, but I don't feel comfortable taking any cash games with anybody. Though, with that said, Nerlens Noel is one guy I will look at 3,800. He played a solid amount of minutes in that first game back, 18 minutes, and they lost by 13 points. That gives me something to like there. He's only 3,800. We know he doesn't score the ball much. He only took 2 shots in that, and he still had 14.5 fantasy points because he does a lot of everything else. In this particular matchup, without Brook Lopez and a bunch of backup bigs, Giannis usually plays there, but especially when he's needs a breather, I think Nerlens Noel could bring back sneaky value here, especially if he's ready to play 22 minutes, 25 minutes. Mitch Robb has really not done much of anything the last week or so. So Nerlens Noel can start sealing some playing time if he's healthy enough. I don't mind taking stabs at him there with that cheap price tag. And I will jump on over to the other side of the ball, which is the Milwaukee Bucks. Similar, you mentioned Kemba Walker was playing good, and he said he's felt the best he's felt in a while. Giannis said he's feeling really sore, but he needs to be a leader right now and fight through it. That gives me obvious cause for concern, even though his play says everything but. He's been obviously a stud, but 11.8 is a hefty price tag, and we all know that. He'll be playing a lot of center, like point center. He'll be playing every position on the court probably, but I don't mind looking at Drew Holiday. If he is ready to go, there is no minutes limit to him. That ankle is behind him at 6,500 with no Chris Middleton and a possibly I wouldn't say limited, but slightly banged up Giannis. And no Brook Lopez also. That is a fantastic price tag, and I will be all over him here. I liked Grayson Allen a lot at 5 before he jumped up to 5, so I think just $1,500. I know that's a lot, but Drew Holiday all day right here. Bobby Portis at 4.7. going back to New York, playing against the Knicks again. He played 22 minutes in the last one. He's still creeping up. I think he gets to 26 plus in this one, under 5K. That's a very good price tag to me. And Thanasis at 34, he's starting. So it's hard to find a starter playing minutes. He's averaging in the last two. He has 55 total minutes. It's 27 and a half minutes in the last two. It's hard to find a starter like that at 3,400. So I don't mind taking him there as well.
Yeah, there is definitely some interesting value here. I love the Drew Holiday call. Huge fan of the fact that he's coming back. And if he is playing with 25 minutes, minimum 25 minutes in this one, a prime time, I think this could be a great spot for him. He may not be severely owned too, which helps as well. And we're looking at lineups. So I like Drew Holiday 700, one of my favorite plays in that mid-tier range if we get confirmation on his minutes. So stay tuned for that. I'm also going to be looking at, you touched on Thanos, Giannis's brother, 3,400. He's been playing well. He's starting to show a little bit of a potential. Finally getting some minutes. Really solid as far as all-around play. Can get you some steals, can get you some rebounds. Obviously, definitely has that rebounding trait, the family trait for sure when it comes to his play. So I like him, 3,400. That's a great value play and a great price tag to boot. I'm looking at those two guys primarily. I'm not going to be looking at Giannis. 11,800 is just such a high price tag to pay. It'll probably pay off in a primetime game against the Knicks. He's going to be asked to do a lot here. There's just other guys that I like that are slightly cheaper that I'm going to be targeting. And there's tons of value on the slate. So there's definitely opportunity to play Giannis. I'll just reserve him more for tournament lineups for me personally.
Right, I like it. Let's jump on over to this next game. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers. This one starts at 7:30 as well. The Cleveland Cavaliers traveling across the border to take on the Toronto Raptors. We have a spread for this one. It is the Raptors are 5.5 point home favorites. Don't have a game total. But we do have an injury report. Kevin Love, Lauri Markkanen, Isaac Okoro all out, and Pascal Siakam and Yuta Watanabe out for the Raptors. I'll jump first with the Cavs. With Markkanen and Love and Isaac Okoro out, kind of trims out the rotation, and that's pretty good for us fantasy guys. Evan Mobley, we saw how he has been playing really well, but that price tag is something that it's going to be hard to bring back value, and if he hits value, it's not going to be crazy high. So I really don't. I wish he wasn't 7-2 right now. Jared Allen, that's a guy you can look at 6'6". He's been playing fantastic. We know that the Raptors don't know what they want to do at center, so very good position here for him to take advantage of. And then you look at Sexton, Garland, Rubio. They're all going to be playing extra minutes here because there's no Markkanen, there's no Okoro. That small forward position is now open. They can play three guards if they want. We saw Dean Wade start in the last one, so you can look at him again if you wanted to. He played 23 minutes at 3,300. Really don't want to go that way. I'm looking at Garland or Sexton the most. We know Garland can rack up the assists. Sexton just scores, so I think Garland gets a little edge for me. But I think it's a pretty solid matchup to go with one of them here, even though Fred VanVleet's one of the most underrated defenders in the league. Don't mind going with that backcourt with the trimmed rotation, but I do think Jared Allen is the best play on the team for this night.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Santino, 100%. Jared Allen is a smash play. I like him as probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, actually, mid-tier big man option. I like him a little bit more than Wendell Carter, who I mentioned earlier on the Magic side. For $200 more, I'll pay the extra $200 every day of the week plus Sunday just to have him in lineup. So I love him here. The other guys I'm looking at, Darius Garland again. Definitely keep hammering the Darius Garland button. A guy that can provide assists. I talked him up before his last double-double. So I like the fact that he is coming into his own, becoming more of an efficient scorer as well, which is only going to bode well for his fantasy numbers as well. So I like him. Despite a slight price increase, I still think there's enough value here. So I'm looking at Jared Allen and Darius Garland as my two favorites. I would love to put in Mr. Double-Double rookie Evan Mobley, but it's just the price tag is just a little too high for my liking. So I'm not going to be going that direction. It's right now it's Darius Garland and Jared Allen together.
All right, I like it. Then I'll jump on over to the other side of the ball in Toronto. And I'm looking I like a lot of these guys. Price tags aren't the greatest. Like OG, wish it was slightly lower. Van Vliet, that's still a solid price tag for him. I don't know how much exposure I'll get, but very good matchup, good price tag. He will definitely be in my player pool. Scotty Barnes looks like he's ready to go, 6'8". I'll probably be lower. I'm looking a lot at Trent Jr. here at 5,500. This guy's playing pretty well. The last 2 games he has over 73 fantasy points. He's taken 19 threes in the last 2 games. Playing a ton of minutes. I know we didn't have Barnes for one of them, but he's still playing a lot of minutes on the year overall. 32.6 until Siakam comes back. His role is secure. Probably going to bump down a good chunk when Siakam does come back, but his role is definitely secure right now at 5,500, taking a lot of shots. I think that price tag is rock solid for him. He's probably my favorite option value or point to dollar ratio on this team right now for this matchup. And I just don't know what to do at center yet. Birch, Boucher, Precious, they're all really good price tags. They're all getting solid minutes. I think they can all bring back value, but it's just a matter of how much value can they exceed it. Like none of them are separating themselves from the pack entirely yet. Precious, I guess, is playing the most, but I just don't like that. I'm going to stick to the wing and go with Trent Jr. and take some chances on Van Vliet as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you're just reading my mind at this point in the recording, but we are definitely on the same page here. So Gary Trent Jr. is number 1 play for me on the Raptors side for all the reasons you mentioned above. And on top of the fact that he's shooting the ball pretty well, even though he's inconsistent at times, he's getting all the minutes he can handle, which you mentioned. So that's why I'm looking at him, especially at a 5,500 price tag. It's definitely worth the squeeze there at that price alone. I'm probably going to have Fred VanVleet tied to more tournaments, despite some massive games recently coming off 50-point fantasy effort. A guy that we've seen 50-point games. He hasn't been as consistent this year, but his price tag has jumped up, creeping up to that 9,000 level, which is kind of the max of where I like to play Fred VanVleet. So I'm going to reserve him more for tournaments, but Gary Trent Jr. is a safe choice in that guard forward position. So he definitely has some value there. I'm not going to be looking anywhere else. That front court is a mess. I'd love to play Scotty Barnes, the young rookie. I basically have him in all my fantasy teams this season. I just don't see him hitting value first game back after the thumb injury. We don't know the extent of it, and a price increase to boot. So I'm not going to have too many shares of him either.
All right, I like it. Before we get into these late games, I want to shout out our guys over at DraftKings. The NBA is back, and at DraftKings Sportsbook, an authorized sports betting partner of the NBA, the key to victory is a strong starting 5. New customers can bet just $5 on any NBA team to win their game, and if they do, you win $200 in free bets. DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also get the skin in the game with new same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money that you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code NBA today. Bet just $5 on any NBA team to win their game, and you win $200 in free bets. If they win, you win. With promo code NBA today, this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an authorized sports betting partner of the NBA. You must be 21 years or older in New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only, and it's minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. 1 per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And that is the way to go. I can tell you that is a fantastic deal, and you're not going to want to miss that if you don't have the DraftKings Sportsbook app already. Definitely go download that. Get $200. All you have to do is win one game. Wait for a blowout. But Now let's jump on over to the next game, the first game that starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the only game that starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time before we have 3 late ones. We have the Los Angeles Clippers taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. We don't have a spread for this one or a game total, but we do have an injury report. The Clippers have Serge Ibaka, Keon Johnson, Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris, Jason Preston all out. The Wolves have D'Angelo Russell, and that's it, D'Angelo Russell. I'll jump in the first one with this one. This is a game that looks really good on paper, but then you look at their stats lately, and it's interesting. They're both in the back half of teams in pace, right next to each other at 16th and 17th in pace, and they're both really good defensively, in the top 7. Clippers are 5th in the defensive efficiency. Minnesota is 7th in defensive efficiency. So 2 teams that haven't been winning a ton, but have been playing really good defense, been playing slower basketball. Hard to love them here, but Paul George at 10-4, we know what he does. I think his value is secure here. I think you can play him in this one. I don't think there's not really anybody. This guy's the alpha and omega on this team. And at 10-4 with that $500 price decrease, I think 50 points is really reasonable to expect here. So I think value is just in play with ease, kind of. Outside of that, you can look at a lot of these guys like Eric Bledsoe, Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann. Their price tags aren't crazy. Ivica Zubac, he's not playing a ton, but the price tags aren't crazy. I think any one of these guys is in play for me. I like Terrence Mann the most. He's consistently bringing back value. Obviously, the upside hasn't been crazy, but he's been consistently bringing back over 20 points, over 20 points, over 20 points. So I really like that there. I'm going to look to him a lot. I think Zubac is a guy you can look at. He might have some trouble with Towns in this one, but he played 34 in the last one. He's going to get some minutes back, and this was against Towns in the last one. If he's going to get those minutes back, $4K for a guy who's going to play 30, that's a good price tag. But Zubac, Mann, and then Paul George are the guys that I'm looking at on this side of the ball.
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple other guys. I know, obviously, in terms of from a pace perspective, this could be potentially a low-scoring game somehow. But there's a couple guys that really come to mind in the Clippers. You mentioned Paul George. It's hard to doubt Paul George night in, night out. He's playing at just a very consistently high level, and his price tag dropped to $10,400. So I'm a big proponent of playing guys that are getting price reductions for no reason whatsoever. So in this case, definitely going to have a lot of interest in Paul George, probably one of my favorite high-priced plays on the entire slate at $1,400. So I love Paul George here. Terrence Mann is a fantastic call as well. I love that. I love that play. I love Terrence Mann's game as well. I think he's definitely maturing. Yes, he can shoot poorly from time to time, but when he plays well and consistent in his last game against this very same team, he put up 26 fantasy points. So I do expect 25 points potentially fantasy-wise here. This is probably my second favorite play, and my third favorite play is actually not going to be Zubac. Although I don't fault anyone for playing Zubac, I'm not going to have too much shares in him. He's been very inconsistent this year. I'm actually looking at Nick Batum at 4,600. He's getting a lot of minutes. In his last 2 games, he's getting 30 plus minutes and 30 plus fantasy points. Price under 5K. It's really hard to avoid him here. I know we mentioned a ton of value plays on this slate already, but another guy I'm looking at pretty heavily in lineups is Nick Batum here. And that's pretty much it for me on the Clipper side of the ball.
Yeah, I like it. Batum has been playing a lot too. No Marcus Morris, so minutes are there for him. I'm going to jump on over to the Minnesota side of the ball, and we see Towns similarly priced to George. I think George has the safer floor there. He doesn't have to share the ball with Anthony Edwards. I know there's no D'Angelo Russell, but Beasley's never a guy who's shy to shoot. Paul George is just controlling that team, so I like it. I would rather pivot to George with that price decrease. Not sure why he dropped $500, but he did. Here I'm looking, speaking of 2 people, Malik Beasley and Patrick Beverly, two guys that are just very, very cheaply priced. There's no D'Angelo Russell. That means a lot of shots going to go out. That means the starting job's going to go out. That means usage, ball handling duties. We're seeing Malik Beasley get more shots in the last 3 games, 14, 16, 12. So he's taking more shots, and we'll talk about his threes. He's taken 10, 12, and 8 threes, so 33-point attempts in the last 3 games alone. That's insane. So when he starts hitting a little bit more and contributing a little bit more with the responsibility that he's going to have without Russell, that price tag is just going to look super cheap. And then I'm looking at Patrick Beverly, a back-to-back revenge game narrative. He had himself a near triple-double in that other one, and he was playing like he really just wanted to. Like he was giving everything he had out there against the Clippers in the last one. 36.5 fantasy points. His price tag didn't move much. It's only 4K still. He only jumped up 300. And again, Russell's going to be out for this one. So I really like those two guys here. I think we have some value in like a Vanderbilt and a McDaniels, but you mentioned it just a moment ago. We have so much value that we don't have to throw those guys in there in a matchup that might not be the greatest for them, especially when they're not too much cheaper than Patrick Beverly and Malik Beasley, who are much more part of this offense, going to get minutes, and their roles are much more secure. So those two guys I'm really looking at here.
Yeah, it's again, we're definitely in sync once again. So I'm going to have to agree with you here. Patrick Beverly, 4,000 is just a steal of a price tag. I almost put up a triple-double. We haven't seen a lot of triple-doubles in his career. And of course, he got the spot start against his former team. I don't know if that was a motivational factor, but whatever the case, he only got a price increase by $300. If he gets 25, 30 minutes again here, I don't see any reason why he can't put up at least 25 fantasy points to 30 fantasy points. And that's all he really needs, because he'll get some steals, he'll get some points, he'll get some assists here, especially playing on the Timberwolves, has plenty of opportunity. So Patrick Beverly, my favorite play, probably on this Timberwolves side. And then Malik Beasley, a guy that I used to play all the time before while Russell was out and Edwards was getting used to playing, a guy that was just a prime scorer. As you mentioned, and just putting up 3-pointers by the bunches. Once he started hitting a few of them, he definitely can provide value. 4,400. There's just so much value in the slate. I feel more comfortable with Patrick Beverly over Malik Beasley and guys like you mentioned, Jared Vanderbilt as well. I just don't have a lot of faith in them. They're more for tournaments for me. And then you mentioned Karl Anthony Towns. Love him. Just having another fantastic year, but there's other guys at that price range that I kind of like more in this game. And that's Paul George, you mentioned, for $30 less. I'll take the savings and run every day of the week. Yeah.
And Beasley's that microwave type player. We saw it, as you mentioned, when he just got to Minnesota and Russell was still hurt. When the guy's hot, the guy is hot. And not a bad play there with Beverly. But let's jump on over to the late games, the first of the late game. We have the New Orleans Pelicans traveling to California to take on the Golden State Warriors. We don't have a spread for this one, but we do have an injury report. Klay Thompson, James Wiseman, both out for the Warriors. Pelicans have Dalton Holmes and Zion as out. Herbert Jones and Brandon Ingram as questionable. Ingram's going to be a big one there, but I'll throw it on over to you. How you feeling about this Pelican squad?
Yeah, the Pelicans are an interesting team, especially with the Ingram potential questionable tag. I think that's going to be something to monitor. If Ingram's out, I love Josh Hart, 5,100. Pretty much a lock and load play, mid-price tag. Yes, he didn't play well in the last game against the Kings, but Josh Hart has proven he can put up almost double-doubles when he gets minutes. And against the Suns a couple of nights ago, he did put up almost a double-double, 16-9 with 34 fantasy points. So I expect him to play well in this type of matchup, a high-paced matchup against the Warriors, if we get the news Ingram is out. So that's something to monitor early on. If he is out too, the guys I'm looking at, even though they're priced really high, is Jonas Valenciunis. Even though his last game he played poorly, that might be another reason why he might be a great smash play here, because he's going to be lower owned. And I expect a bounce back. I don't see any reason why the Warriors can stop him in the paint. He should have another massive type of game, potentially a 20-20 even type of game. So probably one of my favorite center plays, and a price that might be overlooked as well, because we mentioned some higher price centers and some lower price centers. So he fits in that like interesting category. So definitely someone to consider in the utility spot as well, into your lineup. So I like him quite a bit as my favorite play. And then if we find out Brandon Ingram is out, Josh Hart is my number 2. I don't have a lot of faith in anyone else on this Pelican side. Any interest in J-Val?
Slight interest. I think anytime I look at the Warriors, I always think, oh, I really want to just play centers on them. Looney is not great. They don't have another backup center, really. It's Draymond. But Draymond is just damn underrated. He's really good. I think J-Val can get a lot of rebounds and put up big numbers, but it's testy to me. It's tough to want to attack Dre like that. At 8,700, it's a risk for me, but I think you can swallow it in GPPs. Definitely not in cash for me, but GPPs you can take that risk and see what happens. But the Warriors themselves, they are a top 5 defense right now, and they're playing pretty much middle of the pack in pace with the Pelicans, who are themselves a bottom 5 defense. But I don't love to attack the Warriors when they're somewhat healthy, and then we know that Clay is going to come back soon, and then it's just going to make it even crazier, even though that they play usually at a faster pace than league average. I do like Josh Hart. I don't expect Ingram to play in this one. That's just speculation. But if he does, that hurts Hart's value and hurts everybody else's value a little bit. But I just don't expect him to play. That's my gut feeling. And I like Devontae Graham because of that as well. We know this guy's going to shoot. We know he likes to shoot. And he's been the main ball handler, especially when Ingram is out. And he's been playing pretty well lately. I think 66 isn't a great price tag. I liked it when it was closer to 5'9", 5'8". But this is a decent matchup. You can attack the Warriors' backcourt. Their front court is always surprisingly where the greatest of the defense is, especially when Klay Thompson's not playing. So my 2 favorite guys here are Graham and Hart, because I'm with you at our. I don't know if I can't remember if you speculated Ingram's out, but I just think he's not going to play. Just my gut feeling on that.
Yeah, that's a great call. I'm in alignment there. I don't think Ingram's going to lace it up here.
Right, and I'm going to jump on over to the Warriors side of the ball, and we see Curry at 11-4. I prefer him over Giannis. Just the matchup. Giannis is the safer guy. Curry is the better option for the upside here. The Pelicans they're not good at defense right now. Without Zion, without Ingram, even with them, they're playing at a decent pace, 14th in the league. But their defense, by any metric, is bottom 5. And that might be putting it lightly, probably bottom 3. But I'll say play it safe and say they're bottom 5. So Steph, especially in the backcourt, Devontae Graham, Nicole Alexander-Walker. They have Josh Hart. He's probably going to have to see a lot of Curry. I would expect he's their best defender / only defender. At 11-4, if he sees a lot of Graham and Naw, because I don't think they're big enough to play anyone on the wings. Like Wiggins is going to have size over him if they do that, if the Porter's playing. So Curry's going to have a lot of opportunities to play Curry basketball, and we know what he can do when he gets those opportunities. So I'd rather just take the slight discount if I'm paying super, super high prices, which we could because we have so much value on this court. On this slate, I said court. Outside of Curry, though, probably gonna leave it alone for the most part. Draymond Green is always a guy I want to play, but I'm always thinking it's slightly higher than I want to pay. I don't think the upside is fantastic, but I really just don't. They're playing very deep. I guess Damian Lee is a guy I would look at, but I think there's more value out there than looking at that. Wiggins, kind of, because of the matchup, but he hasn't shown me anything to want to take a stab at him in hopes for a 45, 50-point game. Poole, kind of. They're all in that kind of area where the matchup seems great, but I just don't want to pull the trigger on them. How about you?
Yeah, it's tough. It's even hard to pull a trigger with a guy like Steph Curry at 11-4. I just don't see myself going to Steph Curry despite his potential game-breaking scoring. I mean, we've seen a couple games recently where he's only put up 20 points, and they're still winning as a Warriors team. So clearly, something is clicking for the Warriors this season that hasn't happened, that didn't happen last season. Where Curry was asked to do a lot more on the offensive end. So that's exciting from a team perspective, but from a daily fantasy perspective, it definitely hurts some of his value here. He hasn't really had a lot of ceiling games. He's had 250, high 50 fantasy point games out of his last 5, which is not a good percentage on any stretch of the imagination. I'm a mathematician, but 40% is not ideal. So I'm not going to take too many shots. I'm not going to take too many shots here on Steph Curry. The other guy I'm looking at, really, Draymond Green, potentially 7,300. Again, price very fair. A guy that can put up 40 fantasy points, but can also put up 30 fantasy points. So with that in mind, I'm not going to have too much interest there. The guys I'm looking at are in a potential blowout scenario here. If we find out the Pelicans don't have Ingram, I expect a potential blowout again. So I'm looking at a guy like Gary Payton the second. He might be, he's questionable right now, but he might be a guy that gets 50 and 20 minutes, and he gets steals, he gets defensive stats. Steve Kerr loves him, so he'll give him minutes, especially if this game ended up being a blowout early on. He might be a great value play at 3,100. There again, there's so much value on the slate that it's hard to go there, but I'm a guy at least monitoring as we get closer.
Right, I like it. We got 2 games left on this docket. The next one is a night. The last 2 are really enticing, I should say. I said the next one. The last 2 are very enticing. The next one we have is Charlotte traveling across country to take on the Kings. On the injury report, we have nobody on the Kings that is on the roster. And on the Hornets, we have P.J. Washington as doubtful and LaMelo Ball as probable. And we did have a spread. I forgot there was only a couple, so I didn't even look. The last 2 we actually have spreads for. Yay. We have a 228 game total, which is by far the highest on the 4 that we have. And the Kings are 3-point home favorites. I'll throw it on over to you, man. What are you looking at on this Charlotte side of the ball?
Yeah, the Charlotte Hornets are one of the more surprising teams to start the season, just because of some of the guys that are really performing well from a fantasy perspective. And I think it's hard to start lineups, which is crazy to say out loud, but it's hard to start lineups without Miles Bridges. He's just been absolutely incredible. His worst game was 38 fantasy points about a week ago. He's coming off 56-point fantasy effort. This is a great matchup against the Kings. Should be a high-scoring game. You mentioned the high game total. It's probably going to be the highest game totals on the entire slate, and the spread is very close. So even more reason why I love Miles Bridges here at 8,200. There's definitely some value there, which is amazing to say. A guy that was probably in the mid 5,000s last season in terms of salary, now is 8,000, and that's still value. Just the amount of performance just the sheer amount of improvement he's had, and everyone at Hoop Ball has been ringing his praises as well. So I like him. LaMelo Ball is definitely a guy that is always in play. I guess against the Kings, he has triple-double upside. I just haven't seen that in recent games. He did have 2 games where he had 50 fantasy points, but 8,900, again, price very high, a little bit too high for me. I definitely will cap my appeal for LaMelo Ball here. I don't fault anyone for playing him. I think he's a great tournament play. I just prefer Miles Bridges when it comes to cash on the Hornets side of the ball. And then also I'm looking at Gordon Hayward, another guy, 7,100. Great price tag, coming off 44-point fantasy effort. Should be another great matchup here against the Kings. The Kings don't have a ton of wing defense here. So I like Gordon Hayward as well for cash. So it's probably going to be Miles Bridges number 1, followed by number 2, Gordon Hayward, and then sprinkle in some LaMelo Ball love as always. And that's pretty much it on the Hornets side.
Yeah, this is going to be a fast-paced matchup. We have 2 top 7 teams in pace. We have 2 of the 5 worst or bottom 6 defenses. The Hornets are giving up the most points in the league, and their defensive rating isn't far behind what that indicates. They're playing at a fast pace, giving up a ton of points, and not playing the greatest of defense outside of, but they are getting defensive stats. They're getting turnovers, just not making basic plays. The Kings are close down there too. They're giving up over 111 points per game, not playing the greatest of defense, but I really don't mind taking stabs at anyone. Bridges has been playing fantastic. As much as I don't want to do it, it's like he continues to do it. So I don't mind going there. I think LaMelo Ball's in a very good spot as well. Terry Rozier, we know the whole shooting guard thing for the Kings the last couple of years, so he's in a good spot. I know he hasn't played great. He shot 2 of 12 in the last one, but before that he took 22 shots, and he's playing over 30 minutes. He's only played few games this year. 3 in a row, though, over 30 minutes in the last 3. So I don't hate going there. I think it's an expensive price tag, and I'd just rather have Gordon Hayward. But it just all these guys are in good spots here. If PJ Washington's out, that's extra minutes that Kelly Oubre was getting earlier in the year, but now he's not fully getting those minutes. A lot of it's just going straight to Bridges. So I really don't mind paying up for any of these top guys, from LaMelo all the way to even Plumlee. He's playing a good amount of minutes too. Cody Martin seeing some solids. I just think it's a fantastic matchup. I'm with you. I think Bridges is the guy that I go with most. Hayward, because of the price tag. I really don't. I'll take some stabs at LaMelo, but I think Bridges and Hayward, for those respective price tags, are hard to pass up in this environment. And then I'll jump on over to the King side of the ball. Similar thing. I mean, you're going against a team that is giving up the most points in the league at 114.9 per game. The Hornets are playing at a top 10 pace, and their defensive efficiency is in the bottom 4. So it's like they're playing so fast and giving up a lot of points because of the pace of the game. But it's not like it's only the pace of the game. It's because their defense hasn't been great either. Their defensive rating, defensive efficiency, any stat you want to throw out there, hasn't been great. It's towards the bottom of the league, bottom handful of the league. So everybody is in a pretty good spot here. Pretty similar price tags. We see De'Aaron Fox at 8,400. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't hate going there. He hasn't been playing great though, so I like to just go to Halliburton at that discount. Davion Mitchell, who's been scoring nicely. I love this kid in college, and I'm so glad he's starting to be really rock solid in his first couple weeks of his career. And at 3,800, I think that's a great price tag for him. Rashawn Holmes is in a superstar spot. Buddy Hield's going to find himself just chucking threes. For me, I didn't even mention Harrison Barnes, who's close to Bridges for whoa, I did not expect this whatsoever this year, but I'd rather just pay the 600 and go with Bridges instead of Barnes. Similar to Fox, I'd rather pay down for Bridges or pay up for Ball. I think for me, it's Holmes, Halliburton, Hield, Mitchell. They are all strictly in play because this matchup is fantastic, and their price tags don't reflect what their upside could be in this matchup.
Yeah, it's honestly I find myself looking at the Kings and just circling almost every starter and bench player as potential hits here. I mean, starting with De'Aaron Fox, 8,400, price down, hasn't played well by any means this season. I drafted him, and he has not performed well in some leagues. But this is a great matchup and a great opportunity for him to get 25 points, get some assists, get some rebounds potentially. He's in play at that price tag quite a bit. Tyrese Halliburton, 6,100, also very much in play. A fantastic value at 6,100 too, coming to 48 fantasy points. A guy that we know can provide all kinds of different goodies when it comes to daily fantasy. I like him a lot. Davion Mitchell, the rookie, has been incredible over his last 2 games, getting more and more comfortable. I picked him up off waivers in some leagues, and that's proving to be a nice long-term plan. A guy that definitely can score, can get some assists, can do a little bit of everything. We know about the defense already, and he's not even getting that many defensive stats so far this season. So that's a guy that I'll be looking at as well. 3,800. in play. Buddy here, 5,700, great price tag you mentioned. Also going to be very much in play as 35 point upside here. Is going to shoot it, has a green light every time he touches the ball, put up 10 threes in the last one, should have the green light again. And then finally, my favorite play in the Kings, who I haven't even touched on yet, is Rashawn Holmes, 6,500. Great matchup against the Hornets here. Double-double opportunity. Should get plenty of minutes. That should not be an issue here. So I'm going to be looking heavily at Rashawn Holmes in quite a few builds. I might just stack this game and call it a night.
Yeah, I mean, you could. You could stack this game, and this next game is similar to it, but it's not as crazy. But I can only imagine they're going to be high scoring too. And this next one is the Indiana Pacers traveling across country again. Well, not fully across country, but most of the country, taking on the Blazers. We have a 224 game total, so close to that last one. And the Blazers are 4.5 point home favorites. On the injury report, we don't have anything for the Blazers as of yet, but the Pacers have TJ Warren, Isaiah Jackson out, Jeremy Lamb as questionable. I'll throw it over to you, man. You can start with these last two and touch on it. How you feeling about the Pacers in this one?
Yeah, the Pacers are interesting, especially with Malcolm Brogdon back in the lineup. I'm not going to have a ton of interest in Brogdon coming off a game where he had 38 fantasy points. He's still getting his legs under him. A guy that, once he gets rolling, is he going to be worth that high of a price tag? I don't know. I prefer Brogdon in that 7K, 7,500 range. So I'm not going to have too much interest there. I'm really looking at guys like Karis LeVert. 6,800 is a great price tag. Price down after almost 40 fantasy points in the last game against the Knicks. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to continue to build and come back from injury well. This could be a great opportunity for a potential another type of ceiling type of game for Karis LeVert, 40 to 45 fantasy points. So I like Karis LeVert as a number one option. I'm also looking at Domantas Sabonis, even despite a terrible game, which actually helped from a pricing standpoint. Price tag dropped $800. So I like Sabonis a lot here. At 9,300, I think it's a great opportunity going up against Nurkic, going up against Covington. This is a great opportunity for him to smash that price tag. One of my favorite center plays on the entire slate, actually, at 9,300. And then Miles Turner is my final play that I'm looking at 6,000, coming off a 57-point fantasy effort. Miles Turner is kind of an enigma when it comes to daily fantasy. He has these monster games, and then he follows it up usually with an okay type of game. So, or potential garbage game. Like we saw a couple of weeks ago where he put up 64 fantasy points and then followed up with 11. So do I trust Miles Turner? No. Am I still going to play him for tournaments? Yes. At 6,000, it's a great price tag. And that's really it. I'm not going to be looking at TJ McConnell too much. Chris Duarte was a great story to start the season. He's kind of cooled off a bit, so I'm not going to be looking that direction either. So really it comes down to Sabonis, Karis LeVert, and then a little bit of Miles Turner for me.
Yeah, and I like that, and I love the price bump or drop on Sabonis, $800. I mean, he only took 8 shots in the last one. He did that before, and a few games ago he took 4, and it was just a big anomaly. He played 34 minutes, but we know this guy's just going to play a lot of minutes. He's averaging 37.5 minutes on the year so far on the short season, but 9,300 for Sabonis in this type of matchup. Very, very interesting. I will take that a lot. I'm with you too. I think LeVert at nearly 2,000 less than Brogdon is where I want to go. Brogdon just came back from that injury, played a chunk of minutes there, a good chunk of minutes, but they haven't done this together yet. And him coming off injury, being 2K more than LeVert, I will gravitate towards LeVert there for all the reasons you mentioned. Turner is another guy I was kind of looking at. I don't love it. I'd rather just go Rashawn Holmes, but Turner has upside, but he's just very, very inconsistent with his fantasy production. So to me, he's more of a GPP flyer type of guy than a cash guy for obvious reasons. But I think 6K is it's still a solid price tag for him. But I'm with you, like spot on. I think Sabonis is super cheap for a Sabonis type guy. He's not going to take under 10 shots again in this game. I can't imagine that. And then I I like LeVert a little bit more than Brogdon. I think LeVert's price tag is solid. And Turner, I mean, he's been playing really well. We'll see what happens if he can get that again. I don't think he's going to get another near 60-point game, but he could bring back 40, bring back solid value for you there. But let's jump on over to the last team of the night, the Portland Trailblazers, and I will let you take this one home.
Yeah, this is interesting. The Portland Trailblazers are a very intriguing team because they have some guys that have really underperformed. There's been a few guys I mentioned this season when it comes to daily fantasy that have really underperformed their price tags, and one of them is Damien Lillard. Despite a 46-point effort in his last game, he's starting to round out a little bit from a fantasy perspective. His last two actually put up 44 and 46 fantasy points respectively. I just don't know if that warrants a 9,900 price tag. I still think it's a little too high. Even in a great matchup here against the Pacers, I just don't know if I trust him so much this season. He's not shooting the ball well at all. We've seen barely any games over 50% from the field. A guy that was a very consistent scorer and shooter throughout his career. He just has not been able to find their range for whatever reason to start the season. So I'm not going to be looking at Lillard that much. Definitely worth a tournament play, but that's about it. CJ McCollum is the guy I'm looking at in the backcourt, coming off a 44-point effort. He's been pretty consistent this season so far, much more consistent than Lillard from a scoring perspective and a fantasy perspective. So I'm going to be looking at CJ as my favorite play on the Trailblazers. I'm also going to be looking at Norman Powell, a guy that's starting to also round into form, kind of 40-point effort against the Cavaliers, a guy that we know can score, can hit some shots. We saw what he could do in Toronto. He's finally starting to show some life on the Trailblazers, and it's great to see. And a price tag under 5K is worth a play or two from me as well. So I'm looking at Powell and CJ McCollum, my favorite two. And then my probably another tournament flyer when it comes to value, Robert Covington. He's been almost awful. Some may say completely awful to start this season so far. A guy that throughout his career has been able to get steals, get some blocks, get some rebounds, points. We haven't seen any of that. In his last game, put up only 3 shots, but he had 27 fantasy points. That just shows you what kind of value he has. At 4,100, another great value play on just a slate chock full of value plays. So I like Covington, McCollum, and Norman Powell, and that's it. That's it for me on the Blazers side. What about you? Any interest in Lillard?
Not really. Yeah, I'm waiting for the Lillard blow-up game, and I think it's coming soon. He put up over 44 in the last 2, and he's starting to round out. He's taken 20, 20, and 27 shots in the last 3 games, so we're starting to see a little bit more Lillard. We keep getting quotes every day that he wants to win a championship in Portland. He has to keep confirming that he wants to stay in Portland. I think that's a big distraction for him, honestly, and it's showing. If we're being completely honest here, it's showing because he has to keep confirming that he wants to play in Portland. No one wants to believe him at face value every other day. He has to say it. So I'm seeing that take effect. And while I know that a blow-up game is eventually coming, and it could come in this matchup because the Pacers haven't been great on defense by any means, 9,900 on a slate like this is not something I really want to go for. I need 50 points for him just to bring back value, and he hasn't done that once this year. So I don't know why his price tag is going up. It went up. It keeps going up and up and up, and he hasn't hit the 50-point mark yet. Can he? Obviously, but I really don't want to pay that price tag with all of these other superstars on the slate that I feel so much more comfortable with. That said, if you think this is the game, good tournament play, I guess, but still you're going to need 60 to make it worthwhile in a tournament play here. All of that said, I really like two of the guys you said in Powell and Covington. I just think those price tags are super cheap for them. Powell's been playing really well. I know he got hurt a little bit, came back, played a lot of minutes the last few games that he's played. 33, 29, 32. He's taking a lot of shots. He's making a lot of shots. He's a very efficient basketball player. And I put up over 20 actual points the last 2 games. It's pretty much hitting value in strictly points right there. And then Covington had a good game in the last one, only 4,100. He's still seeing rock solid minutes. Eventually, he's a notorious slow starter. Eventually, he'll start playing a little bit better. And 4,100 is a price tag that he doesn't even have to play great to beat. So I really like those 2 guys. They're the 2 guys that I'm looking at on this side of the ball.
Love it.
All right, man. So that will do it for our podcast. We went quick in the beginning, and then we started to slow down at the end. But it's fine. I think we did all right. Is there anything else you want to say before we head on out of here?
No, I'm just excited to see all that value kind of creep its way into lineups. I hope everyone has a fruitful tournament and cash as well. Yeah,
and there's so much to go around, and it's not even Friday yet, so we might find even more because we know that there's going to be some surprise inactives and all that crazy stuff coming along. But thank you, man, for joining today, and can't wait to see how it works out. But take care, guys. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you again tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.
Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Find a store near you at speedway.com/locations.